Hello, everybody. My name is Christopher Pazdernk. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm the managing and casting director here at Theo Ubique. And tonight, I want to thank you all for joining us, those of you watching live, and those of you who will tune in after the fact to catch up. We have a very special conversation here tonight with two of the artists who made our current production of Once Upon a Mattress possible. So please welcome into the StreamYard stream, Landree Fleming, director of Once Upon a Mattress, and August Forman, starring as Prince Dauntless. Thank you both so much for joining me tonight.
Yeah,
my pleasure.
So just so everybody knows, I'm going to sort of walk Landree and August through the process of how we put the show together. And if you have questions at any point while we do that, you can just click on the live chat button right below or right next to this video and type a question in the chat. We might not get to it right when you post it, but I will do my best to get us through all of those questions before we leave tonight. So, first things first. Landree, once upon a time, on a dark and stormy night, I don't know actually what the weather was like, I emailed you and said, "Once upon a mattress?" ? What was your first reaction when you heard the title of the play? What did you know? What did you not know? How'd you react to that?
Yeah, so I was very, very excited. What did I know? I had never seen it. I just knew of it as a Carol Burnett vehicle, who I very much love. And That's pretty much, and I knew it was a comedy. That was pretty much it. Golden age musical comedy. And that was where kind of my knowledge ended when you reached out first.
So what was your next step then? After you got this cryptic email out of the blue. I guess not that cryptic. Random. That's the word I'm looking for. You got a random email out of the blue with a
mysterious email.
Yeah, if only we could send emails anonymously. I could have one-upped myself. Okay, but where did you go next then?
Yeah. So you were kind enough to send the script. So what I did next was I read through the script once just to get my initial impressions of the script and listen to the soundtrack anytime we came along in my read of the script to listen to the tunes while still reading the words. And then, of course, I did it a bunch more times. I also, and to prep for my pitch for it, and I also typically, I never do this, but well, I don't do this when I'm performing, but I did as a director, and I watched the movie version with Zoe Deschanel as Lady Larkin. I watched that video as well.
Awesome. So when you were reading and when you were watching, what were your initial impressions of what the piece was as it previously existed and what you were going to do with it, or what you were thinking you might like to do with it once it was in your hands, so to speak?
Yeah. I mean, I think what a good question. I think my initial impressions in terms of what I had seen done with it, so specifically that very, modern video with Carol Burnett as the queen in that one, as opposed to playing Fred. My initial impression was that after reading it as well, was that there were a lot more jokes that I wanted to make sure we hit. Tracy Ullman. Tracy Ullman played Fred. There it is. She was fantastic. There were a lot more jokes that I felt like could really be mined that weren't in the movie. And then also my initial pressure from reading the script, I wanted to really highlight the conversation surrounding gender in the script that I didn't think really I at least in the movie I felt like it hadn't yet caught up to the ways that we're exploring our gender in today's kind of time period, I guess. What we've learned, that kind of thing.
That's a great segue to get August in on the action here. August, what was your first impression when somebody said to you, "Once upon a mattress?" Question mark.
I was like, me? A musical? I also had not seen it or experienced a lot. I guess Landree and I were the two high schools in the history of the world that didn't do Once Upon a Mattress. But I was intrigued. I immediately started to listen to the soundtrack. And when I was initially called in, it was only for Sir Harry. So I really only listened to Sir Harry's songs and like prepared those and got into the mindset of Sir Harry and really just started to fall in love with the show. And I had never been in like a beautiful golden age musical, and this one was really, really fun, and it had a lot of humor that aligned with my sense of humor. But yeah, so I submitted my materials for Sir Harry and was thrilled to be cast as Prince Dauntless instead. Apparently, I am not suave and debonair and knight-like. That's okay. That's okay. It's been a thrill to work on it and learn more about this piece each night, honestly.
So that's a good segue. Landry, tell me a little bit about the casting process. Pretend that I was not in the room at all. For the folks at home, um, you started talking a little bit about exploring gender in your production of this piece. So also for the folks who might haven't seen it yet, just talk a little bit about what that casting journey was like, because we obviously had a lot of conversations during that process.
Yeah. Oh, casting was such a cool evolution. So the way that the process worked, peek behind the scenes, is that actors submitted their initial auditions, their general auditions to Theo, and Chris created a lovely spreadsheet with the actors' videos and then headshots and resumes and things like that. So, first, what we did was we just watched every single video, and I think we had over 200 actors submit. So that was really fun and a really cool opportunity to get to know a lot of actors that I was unfamiliar with. So then from there, the whole team, so me, Chris, Jenna Shoppy, our incredible choreographer, whose last name, this is the first time I've said out loud, so I hope I pronounced it correctly.
You did.
our, our assistant director, Evan Tyrell Martin, Jeremy Ramey, our incredible music director. So we all went through and said, yes, I definitely want to see more from this person. No, I don't necessarily need to see more from this person. Maybe I would be interested, and here is who I'm interested in seeing them for. From there, we whittled it down even further until auditions in the room. And I think the way that casting really worked for this show was we just remained very available and open to like what the actors brought. So it was, I think sometimes when people go into, well, actually, I don't know, I can't speak for anybody else, but I didn't know the majority of these actors. And so, and I also, as someone who performs as well, I always think, oh, I can wear many hats. And so when the actors came in too, it was like, I know that they can also wear many hats, actually hearkening back to what August was saying about being called in for Sir Harry, and then being cast as Dauntless. So yes, we kept our hearts open for people to tell us who they should be, and then they did. And then afterwards, we just kept putting together everybody. Is this person going to be great with this person? And as a whole, do we have the ensemble? And we really do. I mean, I think the cast is incredible.
Yeah, and I'll just add, what you were saying about keeping our hearts open. I love that phrase. August was not the only person who ended up getting cast in a role that they did not audition for, which was kind of a fun thing. We kind of used, I think, maybe a little bit more than typically happens. We used the audition process as a getting to know you exercise.
Yeah.
And then kind of, was let different people lead us to different things, which was, I think, really exciting that way.
It was so fun. Yeah.
I think the only thing we walked in with was just the agreement that nothing about this has to be the way that it usually is done.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
August, what was the audition process like from your end? I know you mentioned you hadn't done a musical in a while before. Just sort of like what goes through your head and your process when you're given, sides and stuff.
Yeah. I was out of state when auditions were happening, actually. So I was in Arkansas doing a different show at the time. So I, for the callbacks, which were to be in person, instead of getting to do that in person, being in the room, which I would have loved to have done, there's just something really special about being able to audition in a room. with the people, with the bodies, and seeing what other people are doing, and just getting that really amazing energy. I was alone filming myself. So like I said, I was in Arkansas. I got the sides. I immediately started memorizing those sides, and trying to sort of find my own version of it was at the time Sir Harry, and seeing how August as Sir Harry could sort of fit into this world that I know Landree was creating, and seeing how I as August would fit into this world. So I just played a lot with the lines. I did them the way that I thought was funny for Sir Harry. I learned the songs every day. Every morning I was at the gym and I was just listening to Sir Harry's songs on repeat, just working on those. And then this was the hardest part. This was the hardest part, the dance call. So I still had to do a dance call, but I was not there for a dance call. So I had to learn a dance on my own, record the dance. I am an anxious mess when it comes to dancing. So I had to have taped it upwards of 30 times. I was sweaty. I was gross. I don't even know what I ended up submitting as my dance at that point. I was just like, I have to send it. It's due. And it worked out.
I love that. It was it's so funny, right? It's much nicer when you're in the room and you can do it once and forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I feel that, and thank you for all the extra effort
Yes.
on our behalf. Landree, I'm wondering if you can maybe now that we've talked through the process, talk about how your interest in exploring gender really showed up in the way that you ended up casting the show.
Yeah, so it started off pretty basic in terms of like, I really, as someone who is non-traditionally feminine in some ways, certainly my personality, people like to decide all sorts of things about you and what is feminine and what is not. But that is the question I was asking, right? What is ideally masculine traits? What are ideally feminine traits? Who gets to decide those? And why do they get to decide them, and how, and what do we decide as a society we're going to value now? Because because too, like, that is so, like, masculinity and feminine, anyways, I just think it's such an interesting conversation for us to have. So then when it came to casting, I guess, how did that play into, well, so I think, like, for me, using August as an example, for Dauntless, like, um I wanted someone who had a softness about them that wasn't people's necessarily perception of a masculine prince, so super tall and, you know fights dragons all the time and doesn't really think about other people as much and is really into himself. And I knew what August could bring is a kindness and an openness and a vulnerability, um and I knew too, oftentimes too, like, princes, or these masculine characters, are often like, they're also kind of infantilized in a way, you know what I mean, like these childish whatever. And that is probably one of, August knows this, but one of my least favorite things to watch is like, is adults doing that. And so August was able to explore that. Instead of childishness, it's open to new things. It's being excited by new opportunities. And so then too, when it came to exploring femininity, it was really important to me that, um, that Fred was strong and was someone who felt confident speaking their mind, and wasn't afraid to play. I think that's, sometimes I think, femme people can have a fear around I guess looking ugly in terms of like to be funny, you really have to be quite vulnerable and sometimes and very human, and sometimes that means you make really, maybe unattractive faces or fall a lot, stuff like that. Anyways, but then too, like I wanted the portrayal of um, Lady Larkin and Sir Harry to be very idealized versions of femininity, yes, and masculinity. And what was so fun too was like what I love about Lady Larkin too is that I feel like, and Sir Harry, is that I think that they both represent very idealized forms of femininity and masculinity, and at the same time they possess without maybe perhaps knowing, they really possess really beautiful qualities of these attributes that aren't always associated with being feminine, with being masculine. Harry has moments of embarrassment or can't find his words, and Lady Larkin has real moments of strength that I don't think she's aware of. And anyways, yeah, I talked for a while, but that's I could talk about that for forever. I think it's
That
so
picture is so good.
really good. Those two are
Do
very
we need it again? Are we saying we need it
Yes.
again?
yes.
So for
It's
those of you
great.
watching at home, on the left, that's Parker Goodry as Lady Larkin, and then on the right is Michael Metcalf as
So
Sir
good.
Harry.
Ugh.
Well, let's explore this now, August, from the actor's point of view. We've been cast. You're given a script. We're about to go to first rehearsal, or where you're in rehearsals, and you're investigating this character, who's as far as we know, almost always been played by a cis man previously. What's your journey like getting into exploring that character?
Yeah. I was really excited to explore Dauntless. I was excited to play in a room where I knew I wasn't the only one playing a character that I typically would not be cast as. I find that typically as an actor, I'm often in spaces where I am the only trans person, or I'm the only non-binary person, or I'm the only person who uses they, them pronouns. And it can be really scary and daunting. And I found this process to be dauntless. Did that work? Okay, good. Thank you. I was like, dauntless, right? Yes. Because I got to go into a room with other people like myself. I think if I were going in playing this character and I knew I was the only human like myself in that room, I would have been so overtaken by that fear that I don't think I would have been able to explore Dauntless in the same way that I could explore in this room. I felt very free to make mistakes. I felt I had permission to go big, to do whatever I needed to do to find Dauntless. And I found that a lot of the other actors in the space, being in that room together, also felt that sort of release of these ideas that we force on ourselves every time we go into a rehearsal space, right? I have to be the best version of myself because I need to prove to all these other people that I belong here. But that wasn't in this room. And so it really freed us up to explore and create these really three-dimensional characters, where I think these characters it's so easy to play them two-dimensional, right? Angry queen, silly little boy prince, masculine nightman. But that's not what you get with this musical. And I think it's so special. And I think the production at Theo Ubukwe is I think audiences are seeing the joy from the characters, but I really do think that they're able to see the joy from the actors, and that creates a completely different experience on and off stage.
I love that.
Yeah.
Landree, besides the actors, there was obviously also a lot to engage with in the design aspects of the show. Mm-hmm. Anything that you're interested in that you can share with us about that evolution and how the design reflects everything that we just talked about with the people inside the design.
Yeah. Uh, so, gosh, I was just Uriel Gomez is our costume designer. And when I was originally thinking of this show, um, normally you don't always go with your first kind of gut instinct, but this one we did and we ran with it, which is that I was like, wouldn't it be fun to kind of marry like glam rock, 70s, 80s glam rock fashion with medieval fashion? If you see, like, if you look at David Bowie and Labyrinth, I think that's the perfect example of like how those fashions really can be married so nicely. So to me, I was like, well, I really want to see well, and what was important about the glam rock period too is that that was a time in our more recent history when we were exploring our gender presentation, in terms of how we wanted to show ourselves in the world, so I was like, what a perfect like time period to play with. And then when it came to our cast, it was just really important that we honored their identities. So we asked them, we just talked with them, like what they would be comfortable in, how they wanted to, how they wanted to express themselves within this character. And Uriel was so awesome and a really great, he's a brilliant designer. And we bonded very quickly because he was very excited about this approach to Once Upon a Mattress as well, because it, as far as we know, it's a different take that we haven't seen explored in terms of like that cool like glam rock marriage costumes wise. So that's a super fun design, I think.
I'm going to put up a couple examples here just for us to enjoy or enjoy again if you've seen the show. Here's Anne Sheridan Smith as the Queen. And then here's also a group of our ensemble. You can see one of the things I loved that I think also comes from that glam rock period. You see it in Laura's costume right here. Laura is the performer in the orange dress you see to the right, is this idea of kind of what traditionally is maybe the silhouette of underwear being worn as outerwear. Nath has a similar thing. Nath is the performer in the white outfit up center. Their gold piece can't quite see it in this picture, but again has kind of a very sort of like corset-y silhouette that then gets worn on the outside, which I just love.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even piggybacking off of that to touch on scenic design, Mara, our set designer, did a really incredible job of because we wanted to show that the royal family was a more coming from and especially the queen was tradition and these long standing ways of behaving and expectations and things like that. So what Mara did was create this really great space to play in that felt very like, yes, again, traditional, your typical castle, of course, beautifully done. Yes, exactly. Look at that great smile. But yeah, that set is perfect to illustrate that. So great backdrop to really highlighting those costumes.
So that's Michael Ashford, who plays the jester in this picture. And you can see a lot of what Landree's talking about. We have sort of the stone flooring that you feel, that feels very castle-like, this kind of marble platform, and then a very sort of like rigid, medieval structure then behind it as well. Also, fun fact, I keep moving my mouse around as if this was Zoom and I'm helping you find the things I'm talking about. And you can't see my mouse at all. So that's just a fun fact. Just a fun fact. So this is a musical. I'd love to talk a little bit about the music, especially when I ask you, August. Someone who hadn't done a musical, what did you find exciting or challenging or both about tackling the music in the show? Did anything have to change? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it was so exciting to get to work on music again. And to work on music like this is such a joy. I think everybody got 1 to 2 songs, and I couldn't even choose what my favorite is. There are so many good ones in this show. But when it came to tackling the music, so we all got together. We started the process with music rehearsals with Jeremy. And so we basically worked from the top of the script to the bottom. Sometimes we would work individually with Jeremy. Sometimes we would work in the group. On our first day, I was a sweaty mess because it was my first time singing in front of anybody other than probably Landree hearing me audition for things in at least 8 years. So it was really scary, but the energy in the room, the support was incredible. I felt very safe to just sort of explore in that space, explore with Jeremy one-on-one, and also Landry again has heard me practice nonstop in the house as well, which was great. But what was really wonderful is because we had some folks singing parts that maybe didn't quite fit in their register, where their register was, depending on who they were cast as. Jeremy did a really lovely job of changing keys in songs to fit the performer. So no performer ever felt like they had to sort of push themselves into the box of the song. Jeremy made the song work for everybody, every cast member. Even if it was someone who was cast in a role they might typically be cast as. I know Sonia had some of her arrangements changed keys throughout the process because Jeremy knew that Sonia had this powerhouse voice, wanted to make sure that these powerhouse songs fit beautifully into Sonia's range, and they were able to do that together. And much like the rest of this process, the musical aspect, working with Jeremy was very collaborative. We definitely felt like we were in good hands, and Jeremy was able to work with us on any level that he needed to work with us. We had some people in the cast who've been in 1,000 musicals. We had some folks like myself, Sarah, who is in the ensemble. This was Sarah's first musical in, I think, 10 years. So Sarah was also feeling nervous, but Jeremy was able to meet everybody where they were and really made this a solid musical experience.
I love that.
Yeah.
So now we're in rehearsal. Oh, I think we have. As we think through this rehearsal process, for each of you, what was maybe the biggest discovery that you had in this process as an actor or director, and what was the biggest challenge that you faced in terms of diving into? Mattress came out in 1959, so I mean, whether you're reinventing the wheel as we did a little bit or not, we're dealing with a show that's over 60 years old. So maybe like the biggest joy and the biggest frustration, if that makes sense, from the process from each of you. And frustration, frustration in the artistic process, because
Yes.
producing in the time of COVID brings us up frustrations that we could talk about at length in a whole other discussion that we'll just not have to bring that in right now.
August, do you want to go first?
Sure. I guess my frustration and my positive kind of exist in the same place. So my worry, and a worry that I think a few cast members shared, was audience reaction. Right, Chris, like you said, this musical has been around for a very long time. And when you have a musical that is so beloved by so many people, there is a certain expectation of what they're going to come to the theater and see. I feel like we've probably all worked on shows where we did something slightly different and were met with negative reaction because it's not what is typically done. So I know for a lot of us, we were really nervous about the reaction we would get, because we knew that what we were doing was a good show, but it wasn't going to be a show for everyone. And knowing the types of audience that would come and see Once Upon a Mattress, there was a very real fear that this production would not be as appreciated as I think so many of us were hoping that it would be, because we really have created something so wonderful. It's just a joyous celebration, and there was that real fear that it would not be met by the audience. And then flip to my really triumphant success is that people have loved it. We have had so many people of varying ages come and see the show, and we've been able to have really, Landree and myself and numerous cast members have been able to have lovely conversations about gender and people's own idea of their own gender and how they've existed in this world, and how this production allowed them to sort of question how they've existed in this world, and even shed some light on some things for some audience members. I think it's also just been so wonderful to see that doing a show like this is possible, and it will be received well, and that it's so good. It's so good. And I don't often feel that way about shows that I'm in. It's so good, and it's happy, and it's joyful, and we feel it on stage when the audience is feeling it. So that's been my happiest triumph, is returning to musical theater, but being able to return to musical theater in this show, in this iteration of my body, of who I am, and being met with such love and success has been really lovely.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Landree, what about for you?
Oh my. Well, the joy part is really, really hard to whittle it down. I mean, there's just endless joy getting to watch these actors tell this story and play with one another, and I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but it's endless joy. Getting to work with them and with the team. I feel very, very fortunate. And then endless joy getting to share that joy with an audience. I mean, gosh, joy is tattooed on my wrist. It's so important to me that we have the opportunity while we're here to share joy with one another. So all of it was right. Challenge, the biggest challenge. No, the bed. The bed was the biggest challenge. We got it really late. We got it very late, and then we got it late, and it didn't work. And then we were like, but honestly, I do. There's something in me. I don't know what it is genetically. Like, who in my ancestry was like really good at this? But like, when other people start to get like stressed out, I get weirdly calm. I'm like, no, we're gonna figure it out, and we did. And we went through a couple rocky iterations during previews, and then we found it, and I love it, and I love it, and a decent amount of credit should go to Ann Sheridan-Smith, who had a great idea. I don't want to give away what it is if you haven't seen it yet, but gave us some fun inspiration to work with.
Yes, because for those of you who haven't seen the show yet, or by chance, if anyone's watching this that might not even have been to Theo, we're a small black box theater. We seat about 75 people, and for this production, and for most productions, we're in a 3/4 thrust, which means the audience is on 3 sides. What does that mean? There's not a whole lot of backstage space to store things that take up a lot of room, like, mattresses. So Landree and the team, as she mentioned, found a very creative solution to the bed that we won't spoil here. But either you've seen it, or hopefully you'll be able to catch it this weekend. We had a question in the chat that I'll ask both of you. What are some of your favorite musicals that you'd like to see reinvented or reimagined the way that you did with Mattress?
August, you start because you've already talked about some, so you go first.
Oh, sure. Into the Woods. I would love to see reinvented a little bit. I feel like there's so much room to play in Into the Woods. And I don't think we've seen all the ways to play with Into the Woods, and I would love to see that. That's a big one for me. Landree, what's one for you?
Hmm.
Uh-oh.
What is one for me? I don't know Heather's super well,
Ooh.
but I think Heather's could be a really cool show to explore like we've explored. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But see, my brain went to, but first of all, I think it could be interested really and I mean, I think exploring the ways we've explored, not necessarily doing glam rock, but
Yeah.
you know, I think we could do in any show really.
I
But
know.
also, yeah,
Yeah, I think doing Once Upon a Mattress this way really sort of opened our eyes to the possibility of we could do this with so many shows, and you know, just change it up, and you get something a fun new nugget that you never had before.
I
Chris,
think
is there one? Because you're the star of musical theater. You
I
are.
know,
Well, I don't know if this is reimagining so much as I
right?
just want to do it, but um, there's this show that takes place entirely on roller skates,
Oh my gosh! I knew you were going to say this.
where everybody plays trains, called Starlight Express. I talk about this a lot. But I think because everybody is just playing a train,
Yes.
there is sort of really endless possibilities and figure out how to just create a space that
Yeah,
welcomes everybody as they are and
yeah,
just brings people a lot of joy,
yeah,
which is the word that we've mentioned a lot here tonight. Because at the heart of it, it's also a fairy tale. It's really just Cinderella with trains.
yes,
Honestly,
Cinderella.
is really what the show was based on. Kind of the framework of it. Um, and I think sometimes, like any fairy tale, and it's so interesting, August, that you mentioned Into the Woods. I feel like sometimes those sort of stories that we've lived with for so long can be the most fun to sort of flip on their head and re-examine.
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast, right? There was just a beautiful production of Beauty and the Beast done, which I didn't get to see, but at the only theater center right outside DC.
Mm,
They had a plus size Belle of Color. The Beast was an amputee, and just again, sort of just being like, we don't have to do this the way that we've done it before, and we can find a way to bring people into this story who are usually excluded from this story.
yes,
I've also seen that twice now in two very different productions with Oklahoma. There was in Oklahoma at Oregon Shakespeare Festival that I fell in love with. That was a total queer reimagining, lots of same-sex couples, actors of all genders. And then there was, the recent tour based on the Broadway revival right before the pandemic that was, very interracial and dug into some darker aspects of the show. Two extremely opposite productions of exactly the same text. And I think that's, obviously one of the exciting things about Mattress as well.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, and I was gonna say, yeah, I mean, like what we're saying, I think every show provides an opportunity to do it differently than it's been done and to open the door for an actor that wouldn't necessarily be seen for those roles in the past because it's so great when you do that and like so cool. Like, yeah, I feel like any show.
Do either of you have any words of advice, helpful hints if somebody was looking at a show that they, either they have been asked to reimagine or are just feeling it's a little dusty for whatever reason? What would you tell somebody being charged with that kind of an artistic assignment like you two had?
So I guess the advice that I would give, not I guess, the advice I would give, is I would say first start with what the text speaks to you, and what you and your particular what you what speaks to you in the piece that also you relate to, that I think that you can bring your unique voice to. I think that's important, that you bring your unique voice to. And also, to keep your mind open and be willing to collaborate. And then I think too, like, don't censor yourself. Don't worry about, you know, uh, we care about what the audience thinks, in terms of, we care so much that the story is clear, and we care that they're having a good time and things like that. But we only have so much control over that. So when it comes to, like, what excites you, and like the ideas that you have, just like put it out there. Put it out there, because you never know when you're going to get your next chance to do it. So why not do it exactly in the fun way you and your team dream up, you know?
That's amazing. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think you really, before we get to August, I think you really led the charge for us with that, Landry, because, this obviously everything that you did with the show is not an idea that Fred, our artistic director, or I had. It's really Landry's version of Once Upon a Mattress. And I think that you had such a clear idea of what was important to you about the story, and that you were able to cast people that you felt fit in the version that you were trying to share with us, is what made it so clear, and what created the space for all that, experimenting in the room that August was talking about. And on behalf of everyone, I think that was just a gift to have someone who just really had a vision for what they wanted to tackle with this show. So anybody else out there would be wise to heed Landry's words of advice there. It looks like we may have lost August.
Yes.
We'll and they're back. And they're back.
And they're back.
Internet has been so wonky lately. I am so sorry.
It is okay. So yeah, we were August. If there were other actors, in a similar situation, had the opportunity to kind of take a classic show and turn it on its head, anything that you would, wise sage words for them?
Do it. Don't dream it. Be it.
Yeah.
But I just want to speak, there was a thing that Landry said that really stuck out to me, and it took me a long time to get to this point, but stop putting onto yourself what you think the other people want to see.
Mm-hmm.
It's never going to be impressive, right? It'll be fine. It'll be cute. Maybe it'll be great, but it will never be as good as if you just put yourself into that character. It's what I hear from casting director after casting director. It's what I hear from agents, all sorts of people, but it's be you as this character. Don't put on what you think anybody else wants, because it's not going to be as good as when you insert yourself, as you bring out those qualities of yourself that are so perfect for this character. Bring those aspects out, like Landry said, that excite you, that you can relate to, right? Because that's what's going to connect with audiences. That's what's going to connect with casting directors, right? That thing that makes you special, right? Because if everybody else is just putting on what they think they need to put on, you're not going to stick out, right? Do what makes you special, because, right, like, every person in the show is playing the character a different way than I think a lot of audiences anticipated them playing. I've heard from numerous people when they see my version of Dauntless that they've not seen a Dauntless quite like this before. And I make weird choices, and that is awesome, right? Because it's creating a character that's never existed before, and making this production that's already filled with so many unique characters, right, even more unique with this version of Dauntless. And it's really cool that audiences are seeing so many different things that they've never seen before in a show that they're so familiar with. So that's been really nice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're closing in on the end here. Just a final call out. If anybody has a question that you'd like to ask, feel free to type it in the chat quick, and we'll try and get to it in our last few minutes here. I did get one question emailed in advance. Somebody asking, why can't we have a cast recording of this production? Because they love the voices so much, which I thought was so kind. Thank you, Bob and Judy. Unfortunately, they don't. I mean, besides the fact that making a cast recording is prohibitively expensive, they don't usually give the rights, for smaller productions like ours. But when Landree and August are big time and take this show to Broadway, we'll get the MATTRESS 2030 Broadway revival cast recording.
Yes.
Can you imagine that budget? That budget would be so nice.
I know. We could have so many more people. We could have like an own little kingdom.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god.
You could have 20 mattresses.
We could have 20 mattresses.
We could have 20 mattresses.
I'm not saying we don't.
I'm not saying we don't, but they could be different mattresses.
We might have more.
We could have 35.
They could do really skinny pancake mattresses.
No, I want pancakes.
Huh?
No, they're all pancakes.
They're actually pancakes. I'm hungry.
All pancakes.
Landree, August, any final thoughts? Anything I didn't ask you about that you wanted to share about this process?
It was a really beautiful process, and I want to thank you and Theo, you and Fred and Jeremy and everyone involved for creating such a really lovely space from start to finish for us, and that was really incredible too. Because I will say, and I don't know if the people watching are super familiar, but it's not always that the higher ups at the theaters are as willing to release the reins, and while y'all were very helpful and you gave great feedback and thoughts, you also trusted it, and you gave us a safe space to play, and I'm really grateful, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Ditto.
Great.
And Oreos. We haven't talked about double stuffed Oreos, but double stuffed Oreos were the official cookie of Theo Ubekwe's Once Upon a Mattress.
We did have some mega stuffed backstage, and we found it was too much stuff.
It's too much stuff.
Just the double stuff.
It was just too much.
Sometimes gluten-free. I don't know if we had gluten-free actors, but sometimes there would be gluten-free double stuffed Oreos, which taste the same.
With supply chain things right now, sometimes you just have to take the double stuffed Oreos you get when you can get them. You know what I mean?
That's right. Yeah. Official cookie.
So if anybody's coming out to the show this weekend, feel free to bring along some double stuffed Oreos for the folks. They would appreciate it. You heard it here first. Or again. All right, friends. Well, if there's nothing else, I just want to say thank you on behalf of everyone at Theo and all of our audiences for your part in making Once Upon a Mattress such a very special show that I know we're going to miss a lot. But as I mentioned, you still have 4 chances to see it this weekend if you haven't yet. And we hope to see you at the theater.
Yeah.
Thank
you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.